Village, the home of the Ganados, the scene of the first difficult fight of the game, and one of the most famous Resident Evil locations. It is the first Mercenaries map, one of the most played, and can prove to be one of the hardest due to the looming threat of 6 Baya sisters. In this video, I'll be explaining the basics of the enemy spawns for this map. This is not going to be an in-depth look at the spawning for world record scores, but instead will serve as an introduction for players who struggle to keep a combo or find enemies to kill. The idea here is to keep it simple. So, let's begin. The first thing that's crucial for the 60 FPS versions of the game, PS4, Xbox One, Nintendo Switch, and Steam, is that there is a spawn glitch. There is only one way to prevent this glitch and spawn all 124 enemies. We have to start from this position next to the tower. From here, we need to run to and jump through the window to our left in under 8.7 seconds. If we take too long, then 5 enemies will never appear. Here it is again. You'll know that you've successfully spawned the 5 Ganados because these 2 will appear on your right. If you fail to spawn them, then they won't appear. Running and jumping through the window can be done with all the characters, though it is much easier with Krauser and Ada because they're the fastest in the game. Wesker and Hung can also comfortably make it in time, though sometimes they can be a half second out, requiring a restart. Leon is by far the trickiest as he's the slowest character, however, it is still possible. At this point we have our first 10 enemies on screen. In a normal run, we would go into the barn with the explosive barrel and bonus chest and start the run by blowing up these 10 enemies, then run out to start spawning everyone else. So, where do they all come from? All the Mercenaries maps are divided into sections by spawn lines, invisible triggers that cause enemies to spawn when they're walked over. Fortunately, most of the lines in Village are technically visible once you know where they are. Generally, we can split the village by left and right. In this video, I'll refer to the left as the side with the shotgun house and tower, and the right as being the houses on the opposite side. Village has another spawn line in the middle, dividing north and south. But how do we see these lines from the ground level? On ground level, on the left side there is a darker dirt, whereas in the middle of Village it is lighter. The dividing line between these 2 colours is the spawn line, as we can see here. As for the right side, moving up the path, entering the house, or stepping up to the chicken barn will cross the spawn line. As for the north-south divide, we can use the bonfire as a guide for this. Moving north or south of it will place you in the spawn for these areas. So where do the Ganado come from when they're spawned in? The general rule is that their spawn points are either behind buildings or inside them. This allows them to spawn outside of the player's view. It is noticeable when playing normally, but let's move the camera to get a better look at how this works. Now that we know where the spawn lines are, and where the Ganado appear from, we can move on to the exceptions to these 2 rules. The first exception are the Baya sisters. They do not spawn based on your location, but instead based on your kill count. The first 2 appear at 10 kills, the next 2 at 25, and the last two at 40. Depending on the location of the player, the spawn point of the Baya sisters changes. They have 5 possible spawn points: inside or behind the big barn, inside the hut on the Mendez path, behind the chicken barn and the area behind our starting house and cow barn. This is why it's easy to end up quickly surrounded by chainsaws. The next 2 exceptions are the 90-second timers. One inside the big barn and the other behind the tower. Each of these will spawn 3 enemies. The next exception is in our starting house. Entering the room where the timer is will spawn 6 enemies. At this point, we will have killed 116 enemies. How do we spawn the remaining 8? We run inside the shotgun house. And that's 124 enemies. It is also worth noting that if you climb the tower, no enemies will spawn as you aren't on the ground level where the spawn lines are. The final important point that you must remember is that the game only allows 10 enemies on screen at a time. So in order to spawn more enemies, you have to make room for them by killing them before crossing the lines. This is essential for the 6 enemies spawned by the timers, as these 6 can only be spawned once. All the others can be spawned by going back over the spawn lines, but the timers can only be grabbed once. This is why in my high score runs, I stay in the barn at the end of the first combo to prevent enemies from spawning, thus making space for the 3 from the timer. After the second combo, I don't cross the right side spawn lines or into the shotgun house until after I've grabbed the timer behind the tower, as at this point, the main area is now clear of enemies. Now that you've made it this far into the video without leaving, allow me to show you a little hidden secret as a reward. Underneath the map, behind the shotgun house, you can find 5 of Krauser's arrows, and you can pick them up without crashing the game. And that has been my basic spawn guide for Village. I hope this video has proven helpful and has furthered your understanding of this small yet tricky map. If you did find it helpful, be sure to hit that like button, leave a comment, and share this video with others who need it. All of that really helps the channel. And if you want to see more content like this, hit that subscribe button along with the notification bell so you'll be the first to know when the next guide is available. And I'll see you all there.